Welcome back to Optimal Play. There is a new Taboo List and FAQ update, which means more Arkham chat. I'm Brandon.
I'm Steven.
And yeah, we usually get together when a new pack comes out and talk about the cards. But we like to, Taboo List updates are kind of like new cards.
A little bit,
right? Yeah. So we're gonna run through the changes. It was not dramatic this time.
Yeah. More erratas than we've had before.
That's true. Yeah, we'll touch on those too.
But yeah, nothing too crazy.
Yeah. But what's new with you? Done anything fun?
We're
out of quarantine for a month or two now. You've taken advantage?
Yeah, I went to Vegas, lost some money.
That's usually how it goes. Yep.
If you think nerdy card games are money sack, like wait till you see blackjack.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't like Netrunner skills at least translate to poker or anything like that?
I met up with the lead designer of Netrunner, and she moved out to Vegas to become a pro poker player.
Oh. You mean like the Nisei?
Yeah.
Netrunner.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Nisei Netrunner. Oh, I've got my iPad out so we can look at the Taboo List. It is making noise. That's okay. It's a live show, sort of. There we go.
But yeah, I mean, knowing that there are all these like pro poker players in Vegas, I'm like, I don't want to be like that guy that's like, oh yeah, like sometimes I win at like my home game where we all pay $5. Therefore, I bet I can make a bunch of money in Vegas. Like the pros love those people.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're actually better off like playing like blackjack or craps.
I think that's a good instinct. Yeah. At least with those games, well, if you do your research or have played them a lot, like you understand the odds. The odds of poker, or when you're playing against other people, your odds are highly variable and unknown.
You're playing against other people who do it 8 hours a day.
Yeah. Okay, that was wise, but blackjack didn't turn out so well, huh?
Not super well.
I was out in the desert too, visited family in Idaho, so kayaking, hiking, that kind of thing. No gambling, some board games. It's been nice. It's been nice not being trapped in this house.
Yeah.
And then June saw a lot of Arkham news too. I know FFG, when I went on to look at the Taboo List right before filming this, they had put out an article just to like recap the month of Arkham. But yeah, a new board game expansion came out. Unfathomable, the rumored board Battlestar Galactica like re-implementation in Arkham was announced, and looks to me great. I'm really excited for it. And then the Edge of the Earth campaign, right? I think there's Edge of the Earth, Arkham Horror,
The Antarctica campaign.
Edge of the Earth, yeah. The Mountains of Madness, like the campaign we all knew would be here someday.
Yeah.
It's here. And in fact, I think that the design notes at the end of the Innsmouth campaign even hinted at colder settings for the next one. So it was not completely unexpected. What was unexpected, and what I've been clamoring for years, so I'm stoked about, is that there's going to be one product for the player cards and one product for the campaign, and that's the whole cycle. What are your thoughts?
I think it makes a lot of sense given all the inventory issues FFG's been having. Like,
Yeah.
You hear from so many people who've been getting, like, this is a good problem to have, obviously, but a lot of people have been getting into Arkham over the pandemic, and they're like, well, I got this pack and I got this pack, but like, should I start Carcosa? I don't have the third pack yet.
Right.
That's just like not a place you want your fans at.
No, and it's unclear, I guess, yet whether they're going to bundle those ones together. I hope they do, because yeah, it's made it hard for me to recommend the game to people. Because it's like, yeah, pick up the core set, and then if you like it, see what you can piece together to play next. Like, it's not a process that I really want my friends to have to do. And then I'm just stoked, like, especially the player cards all at the same time. I've never liked the month by month, like, well, but I'm playing the campaign as it comes out, and so I have this deck that didn't know this new card was coming, which means I have nowhere to put this cool new card. I want to play with it, but this level 3 card that came out makes no sense in my deck. That problem's gone. We can see the new cards. We can plot out where we'd like our deck to go to try that new archetype or just that new level 5 fancy toy or whatever we want to play with. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, even if you like kind of maybe having people build decks and be like a little bit surprised after a few scenarios, you can do that with story assets. You can have it be like, oh, I'm like building towards this character, but then like 3 scenarios in, I got this card that I kind of want to build around this card now. And that can sort of replace the like surprise player card that comes out in the third pack.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. And on the subject of campaigns bringing that surprise, this blows open like the structure of the campaign, all that stuff. I've said this like in Discord debates about this before, but it just cannot be true that every story is best told in 8 parts, like and no other number of parts, right? And so finally, and my understanding is from the Edge of the Earth previews that this one has branching paths and can be anywhere from like 4 to 10 plays long or something, which sounds like it will probably mean a lot of replay value, a lot of surprises on your second or third playthrough as you take that branch and come to a whole new scenario that you've never played before on your, who knows how many times. Yes, I stand by it. Playthrough. Yeah, I'm stoked.
Yeah, like there's no when you're doing packs, you can't have it be like, oh, if you make this choice, you skip this scenario, because then it's like, oh, I wait 2 months till my next scenario,
right.
like that's not a thing you can do.
Right. Yeah, branching paths just didn't work with the 1 scenario each. And there are just lots of other things. It's not just the cadence of the scenario, but every scenario was limited to roughly 30 cards, right? And now there can be, now the finale can use cards from earlier. I'm sure they'll continue using encounter sets from earlier, but can have 60 whole cards devoted to it to make this really epic finale or whatever that is. It's now possible, and it's super exciting.
It reminds me a little bit of TV, where I actually feel like TV's been adapting too slow. But like with streaming, for example, there was like no reason why TV storylines all have to be like 13 episodes that come out every year. Like I used to scream at the Marvel Netflix shows because they would always be like 9 episodes of good story, but then they would like drag it out for 4 more.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, why don't you just do like 8 episodes and then like 6 months later you can come back and do a different 5 episodes, like why are you sticking to this format? And I think what's great here is that we're seeing they're not going to just stick with this format for way, way longer than they need to. Like they're going to go for the flexibility.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know whether there's any more LCGs ever on the horizon, but like this makes me more excited for the next one too, because it's a structure that I think lends itself. Well, it's A, I think it's just more consumer friendly, and B, I think it lends itself better to playing multiple LCGs, right? Mm-hmm. When they come out monthly, it feels like, all right, well, I've always have a new pack that I got in the last 4 weeks. I feel like that's the one I've got to play. It's hard to keep up with multiples of them. It sounds like these are coming out. I would love to think it'll be a little more frequently, but once a year-ish, which means that, hey, in this, when is this coming out? This fall?
I think so.
Yeah. So like this fall we can be all about Arkham for a while, and then if there was another LCG that in the spring has its big content drop, like I can set Arkham aside and enjoy that fully for a little while. I think that's cool, and Fantasy Flight has the potential to extract more money out of me that way. We will see.
That's true. Yeah, you could do much better targeting of trying to get people to play Marvel at certain times and Arkham at certain times. They also announced a revised core set that I believe has full play sets of all the player cards.
I had almost forgotten about that. Damn, there was a lot of news. Yeah, the revised core set that has, it seems to be structured a lot more like Marvel's core set, which was very well received. So that makes sense, but it's actually enough for one product to play 4 players and to have a full play set of everything. So there's no reason whatsoever to buy multiple core sets if you're buying in with the revised one. Which, long time coming. I welcome it.
Yeah, I have absolutely talked to people who were like, oh, I was interested in Netrunner, I was interested in Arkham, but I just won't buy 2 or 3 core sets. Like it just rubbed them so the wrong way. This idea of I have to buy the exact same product multiple times. Yeah,
it always baffled me a little bit because it's like this new core set is priced at $60 or $70, right? Versus the old cores you could easily find for $30 on Amazon or whatever. And so it's like the same amount of money. But like, I get that mental block, and it is. I mean, it's always been wasteful, right? Like you're wasting packaging, and some of the cards, some people make good use out of having multiple copies of the encounter sets, but some of it certainly goes to waste. And then, it's just, it's a bad new player experience to be like, all right, I bought the new thing. What should I buy next? And their friend tells them, well, maybe just another one of those. It won't change. It won't give you anything new to do, but it will mean that you can play at kind of the baseline level of decks that the game expects of you going forward.
I just bought, there's a new, basically LCG called Vampire Rivals from a new company, not FFG, Renegade Games. And they basically did all the stuff that FFG should have done like 8 years ago, and maybe it would have saved like their competitive LCGs. But like full play set of every card, came with like nice like dividers so you could use the box to organize your collection.
Perfect.
Came with everything was built into like beginner decks, so you could just pick them out and then play. And then there was like another section of like, here's the cards to add and deck build with once you played your first few games.
Oh,
but, like
okay.
you didn't have to combine anything to make your beginner deck. So you could basically open it, punch the tokens, and like play a game, you know, within 10 minutes, and you've got all the cards. And I was like, if they had done this like a while ago, like maybe we wouldn't be talking about the LCG as like this failed experiment that sort of works with co-op.
Right. Well, that's awesome to hear. I'm glad to hear that other, you know, competitors, I guess, but other companies putting out similar games are learning lessons and not like starting with the same mistakes. So that's awesome. Are you liking that game? I know you were excited for it.
It's pretty good. I think, you know, it's probably not like as top tier as like a Netrunner, but I think it's pretty good, and definitely they're doing the LCG model right. And I think it'll be like in the mix of games I play, like maybe not, you know, one that I'm like obsessed with, but you know, definitely worth playing when people want to.
Nice. Well, you have to bring over some decks and teach me on stream or something sometime. I'm definitely interested to try it. I don't know that the theme does that much for me, but I'm always interested in the latest card game. Yeah.
Yeah, I played a little bit of like the old Vampire card game and some of the other Vampire related games. So, you know, it's not like I'm not obsessed with the theme, but I like it. You know, I'm familiar enough with it.
And is it the same setting as like there's a series of vampire video games?
Yeah, the video game
is that same IP? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it was it's perfect for busting out your What We Do in the Shadow memes.
Nice.
If you got those ready.
Love it.
So, you know, that doesn't hurt.
Okay. I like it. Yeah. Well, that was a slight tangent. Should we get back to the taboo or the FAQ updates?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So before we get to the taboo list, I like to go through the other updates because it is a whole FAQ with rules updates and that kind of thing. A few cards were errated. I think that there were a few that mattered to me. They were all Seekers. Seeker stuff. Shocker. Seeker cards are broken. Who knew, right? The first one is that Seeking Answers level 2, which had pretty confusing wording about whether it's discovering 2 clues from among your locations or 3. Got clarified that it's discovering a total of 2 clues. Is that how you had thought it worked?
I don't think... I feel like that's one that I would have thought about if I had put it in a deck, you know, but I hadn't gotten as far as putting it in a deck, so I had not really thought about it.
I had my main argument for it, like in the many online debates and stuff that have happened about it, I've always thought it should be 2 total, or was intended to be 2 total, largely because of just its power level. You add 2 experience above the level 0 version, it gets 1 more clue. That's like deduction 2, right? Like that's an established kind of difference between a level 0 and a leveled up card. And so this was no surprise to me. Also at 3, at least for a solo player, you can use this, discover 3 clues from your location and connecting locations. Like you can wipe out 3 whole locations that way.
Yeah, I don't really play solo, so I didn't think about that. But yeah, the ability to discover on like connecting locations is much better.
Yeah, when these locations, a lot of them have 1 clue each. Yeah, it's pretty busted. So, I think that brings the card to still a strong spot. It's actually a card I haven't gotten around to using, but I think it's good. Maybe if in our Innsmouth campaign we had earned any XP, it would be in my Amanda deck. Who knows?
Yeah.
And then the next one that I was interested in was Guided by the Unseen. Do you remember this one?
Is that the one when you die?
No, Guided by the Unseen is a pretty recent one. It's from A Light in the Fog, and it's the one that lets you spend a secret from it to, during a skill test, let the investigator taking the test search the top 3 cards of their deck and commit a card. But it says, search the top 3 cards of your deck. You may spend a secret to commit the card and then shuffle. And the card didn't exhaust or anything. And the result was you could technically search your deck infinite times. You might as well just search your entire deck and pick out the card you want.
And you also might as well just play all the research cards in your deck, right? Like there's literally nothing to stop you from searching and finding every single research.
Yep. So it got errated to add limit once per test, which actually is better for the card than if it exhausted, which is what I would have expected, because that means you can use it multiple times per round. Is that difference? But I think that just makes the card like function. It was clearly broken. And then the other one is actually a rules clarification, but we had been wondering, I think on our very last video, about the new card Ancestral Knowledge, which puts 5 skill cards from your deck under it, and you can activate its ability to draw one. And we'd been wondering, can you look at those cards? Are you choosing what to draw or not? And that made maybe not a huge difference in its power level, but a difference.
And I played with that card once, and it was so vague. I was just kind of like, well, this seems really good anyway, so I'm just going to do it randomly because like that seems good enough.
Sure. Was it good enough?
Yeah, it was really strong. I was playing like a big hand, Harvey. And I mean, I wanted cards, so that was good. It also, they do good things. And then like the larger deck size, because it doesn't actually affect your ability to get through your deck the first time, was nice, because it means that all your a Harvey cycle is only like 10 cards because you've played all these assets. So you've got 10 cards and you got your weakness that does like 3 damage. So like actually adding 5 more cards to the cycle makes it a little better.
Actually helps Harvey.
It doesn't affect your ability to go through the first time.
Interesting. I had not thought of it that way. Well, if you like the card already, I have good news for you, because the clarification was that you can look at those face-down cards under it.
Nice. Perfect.
So for those you put 5 cards under it. I don't really know why you would not just always draw a card in your first 5 turns, right? Like, why would you stash any there? I'm not really sure.
Well, Harvey, for example, you want to keep your hand size low until you hit your weakness and then balloon up after that.
That's true. Okay, so it lets you start drawing that extra card per turn later in the game if you want. Okay, that's a good point. I was always just thinking of it as it's almost like a... oh shoot, what's the permanent that increases your hand size? Why am I blanking on the name?
You mean at the beginning, Studious?
Yeah. That's just the title, Studious?
Yeah.
Oh, that was in my head, but I was like, it's gotta be Studious something. Or like Studious Effort, or I don't know. Anyway, it seems like just kind of that on steroids, because it's functionally like giving you 5 extra cards. But that's interesting that there's more ways to handle it.
And you could also wait until you have another copy of that card in your hand and then draw it, because there's that one where if you have 2 of the same type, you get to draw a third one, right? The Dream Enhancing Serum, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's super interesting. And it does, I'm looking at it here, like Ancestral Knowledge does use the word draw. You are drawing a card from under it, which means it triggers Dream Enhancing Serum. Wow. Okay, this card just gets more nuts the more we talk about it. Jeez.
It's really good.
All right, I gotta run that soon. I think so. There were some other rules clarifications. None of them I thought were that interesting or surprised me. Want to start us off on before we start actually reading tabooed cards, I guess. What's interesting about this Taboo List update is that previously, the biggest thing that's changed is the chaining and unchaining, which affects the XP cost of cards. Nothing changed this time, right? Unless anything suddenly got taken off this list.
Yes.
Did that surprise you?
A little bit. I mean, that's definitely been their main tool for balancing so far. And so maybe this list is sort of a admission that there's a limit to how much XP can do. I feel like actually we had the opposite reaction to the last Taboo List. Like, wasn't there some stuff like Necronomicon?
Yes.
We were all like, oh, they're clearly going to errata that. Like they can make it exhaust or something. And we were all surprised that they just used XP.
Yeah. I think we've had that reaction a couple times on what they did decide to chain, which was like, this card's still great. Well, this is just a tax on your XP. It doesn't mean you're any less likely to break the game with it. So yeah, maybe that is a little bit of a lesson learned. And man, the mutated card list is actually like quite a bit longer than the chained and unchained list now, which yeah, it has pros and cons. It's harder to remember all the mutations,
Yeah.
right? I think, because you can't just like I don't know about our most of our viewers, but I use Arkham DV to build my decks, which just does the chaining for me.
Yeah.
Right? There's no remembering how a card functions in gameplay with those, but so it comes with a cost. But yeah, might be better for fixing some of these. So yeah, what's the first mutated card that's interesting to you?
So the first one is Elusive, the kind of top move spell in the game. Other than that, Shortcut is maybe up there as well.
Yeah, that's the level 0 previously. Oh wait, that got unchained, right? That had been chained.
Yes, that's right. It had been
Okay.
It had been chained, and there was this whole debate over can you use Adaptable to put it in your deck anyway.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the rogue spell that lets you disengage from all your enemies and teleport, which is nuts. No, I'm sorry, when I say spell, I mean event. It's not literally a spell. But yeah, it's insane. What's it do now?
So now, it just moves 1. So it's still fast, so it's still more efficient than moving. It still disengages from enemies, so it's still good if you have a bunch of enemies on you.
Right.
But it only moves 1.
So like it moves to a connecting location.
Yeah.
Right. And to a connecting location with no enemies. To the extent that that matters, you do have to use it to get away from enemies.
That's true. Yeah, which it always had that. But yeah, when you could when you could pick any place on the map, that wasn't a huge issue.
Right.
So, I mean, Elusive is famous, I feel like, for a couple of scenarios. I mean, it was good in general, but it was like one of the only ways to get, I think his name was Peter Clover from The House Always Wins.
Yes.
Like, who was this guy you had to rescue, and you had, like, 1 turn to, like, get out of this casino.
Yeah, that scenario has always been a little bit overtuned. And now it's still helpful for that, but might not get you across the finish line.
It's going to be pretty tough now. And then another one that was really tough was the Indiana Jones temple in Forgotten Age.
Oh,
where the whole temple rearranged around you after you stole the artifact. And if you had a rogue, they were just like, peace out, I'm good,
Yeah, although they can still do that with I'm out of here, right?
And I think
they can just resign.
I suspect a lot of rogues are going to be putting I'm out of here instead of the mutated elusive. I think
interesting.
In a lot of these cases, I would.
Ooh, yeah, that's real. So I'm out of here is the rogue event that if there's a resign ability available, it just resigns.
There wasn't a ton of reason to do it because most of the times when you would want to do it, elusive worked just as well.
It just got you to the resign location.
But elusive also had these other benefits.
Yeah.
You could use it for other things.
I hadn't thought about that yet, that this could be the resurgence of I'm out of here, or the surgence of I'm out of here. Which is actually pretty awesome. I think that's cool. Yeah, it definitely brings it. I mean, it's good because it's good that it's unchained, because what it does is it brings it down in line with other level 0 options, right? Level 0 shortcuts. Level 0 astral travel. No, that does teleport, doesn't it? It just has
teleports, but it's bad.
It's much worse
original
than elusive. Yeah, and so it just puts it where a card at that cost and that level should be, and leaves it in I think a state where you would still consider it. So I like the change.
I think I like, if you had access to both, which there are now a few characters that do, I think I like Shortcut better. One thing about Shortcut is you can do it on someone else. So it has, there's been a lot of turns where you're like, oh, if you just shortcut me here, then we can pull off this crazy combo, defeat this boss, or clear this location. It's a little bit harder to pull off those crazy combos when it can only be yourself. This also costs more, but rogues do have a lot of money, so I think it's still, the 2 cost is not like the end of the world. Yeah,
I don't think rogues tend to bat an eye at putting a 2-cost card into their deck. It's not usually an issue. Yeah, I like the change. I even at 2 experience, I generally wasn't playing elusive because it still felt so like it. I don't like playstyles that trivialize trivialize scenarios. That let you just like skip over kind of the intended way, you should be building a deck to thwart the intent of the scenario. Like that is the spirit of the game, but just like skip it. It's like, I don't know, it's like signing up to run a race with hurdles and like flying over it, right? It's just
But rogues are supposed to cheat. Like,
yeah,
that is
that's
sort of
true.
the idea.
But just like not even confronting the obstacles as presented to you and just
That's pretty
completely
bad.
ignoring them is, yeah, I guess so. But, and there is one or two more of those. Or I guess maybe just one more for rogues on this list. But yeah, that's I'm okay with them.
Maybe there will be a rogue card at some point that swaps a mutated card for its unmutated version. It'd be like the bribe MJ Newman card.
I feel like that would be a Seeker card. I feel like both thematically and because Seekers are the biggest like offenders breaking the game in half. I feel like you'd have to give that to Seekers. Anyway, the next, so that was, I don't know if you'd call that it's a nerf to the text of the card, but because it unchained the card, like it has pros and cons. The next couple cards that were added to the list are just buffs to a couple of Guardian cards. Have you ever bothered to put the Springfield? I can never remember the full name. Springfield M1903 into a deck.
I have not.
Yeah, it's just a gun that does, I think it does the same damage as the lightning gun, like 3 per shot, but it gives you less combat. And then it had the downside of cannot be used against enemies engaged with you, which is just crazy because Guardians are the ones who should be engaged with the enemies. And I don't know, it's just the flavor of the card was always like, oh, it's kind of a sniper or it's a long distance rifle. But to capture the like fantasy of the card purely in a downside is just not fun.
Leo Anderson can just play elusive and move to the next location and won't be engaged anymore.
That's true. But then he couldn't attack it until now. The mutation to the Springfield adds the text. This attack may target a non-elite enemy up to 1 location away from its standard range, ignoring the aloof and retaliate keywords. You can hunt whippoorwills with this.
Yes, finally.
Actually, that I think, obviously, the most important thing here is that the Springfield can now inherently target 1 location away, which is not something that you have a lot of ways to do in Arkham. And I think the ones who can are mostly rogues with things like Small Favor. So that is obviously the most important part. But I think I was maybe the most excited about ignoring aloof because skipping the move and engage actions that it would take to otherwise attack this aloof enemy. And then also aloof enemies a lot of the time are sitting at a location. Sometimes they hunt, like the whippoorwill does, but a lot of them sit there just perfectly happy for you to take your next 4 actions just shooting them from a distance. I think this is going to be really good partially for that reason.
Yeah, I think it's probably smart for balance. They said non-elite because some of the big elite enemies are kind of balanced around the fact that like if you want to go to their location, it's going to take multiple turns to kill them, and so like someone's going to have to evade them or something. So I think that's smart balance. But yeah, overall, I like they've tried to do these combo range styles. I like that you can just do it on 1 card now.
Right. But then notably, since we dwelled so much on its downside, the Springfield still says you cannot attack enemies engaged with you. So I think that it has opened up this change has opened up this playstyle, but it's still not all upside, right? Like it still is going to force you to play in a fairly specific way. That I think will be interesting. I'm eager to try it. And then along with that, telescopic sight, which is a Guardian attachment that can attach to a gun and lets you do that thing that you thought the Springfield should have done all along, target an enemy at a connecting location. It used to also say, similarly to this, basically, it also had the downside of the Springfield, cannot be used to attack enemies engaged with you. This mutation just drops that downside. It's now all upside. And I think it's not maybe listed on the mutation, but I recall from the article that it's specifically worded so that if you put it on the Springfield, it has a little bit different way it phrases the text so that it adds to the range of the Springfield, meaning you can shoot enemies 2 locations away, which is nuts.
And I believe marksmanship combos as well. So you can add them all together.
Marksmanship was the event that targets one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so cool. 3 locations away is generally as far away as you ever are from anything.
Well, it also, I mean, realistically, I think what it means is that, like, you have a bunch of different combo cards in your deck that as long as you draw like one of them, you're good. If you draw two of them, you're great. You don't really need all three.
Sure. Yeah. And you maybe wouldn't even play all three. Maybe you put Telescopic Sight or Marksmanship in your deck. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I think that this has delivered on kind of a play style and like really a type of fighter that exists even in that era and in life and in combat scenarios that previously the game kind of was failing to deliver on, that I'm excited to try. We'll see. I wonder if it's going to be, so we're going to talk, the next kind of group of cards I think are all cards that kind of fundamentally break rules of the game, and this is dabbling in that, right? Like being able to shoot an enemy without entering its location and dealing with the text on its location, like, can be kind of game breaking at times.
Although clearly this was intended to be a playstyle. They really, really
Sure.
want it to be a playstyle.
Yeah.
They keep on tinkering with it, to try to make it happen.
This is not an accident by any means, that this is now all of a sudden really tempting and interesting and potentially strong playstyle. I just wonder if the community is going to break it too much, or if we're going to find that on average every campaign has 4 scenarios that this just completely gets around the scenarios kind of rules. I'm curious. We'll have to try it and we'll have to see what people are doing with it to find out. But yeah, I'm excited. I just won't be surprised if because the Springfield is also, no, it used to be Unchained and that got dropped.
Yeah.
So it is back to its full, I think, level 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that maybe accounts for it a little bit. You really can't start your deck with this archetype.
Yeah.
You have to do better than we have been in our games lately. Earn some experience and build it. All right, the next kind of the last cards that were mutated all kind of have a similar theme. What do you got?
Yeah, so it is the Survivor card, Eucatastrophe, the Rogue card that's really a Seeker card, 3 aces,
Yep.
the Survivor card, a Watchful Peace, and the Guardian card, Hollow. And I think Pendant of the Queen also basically has the same change, right?
Yeah, that Segment of Onyx is what you actually put in your deck, and then the Bonded card segment, or Pendant of the Queen, is what was changed.
But yeah, all of these cards now are removed from the game after one use.
Yeah.
And they almost all are cards, other than maybe Hollow, which I think we touched on it a bit in our review about why we didn't think it was as broken as Watchful Peace. All these other cards are cards that you would play 3, 4, 5 times in a game.
Right. Yeah, I think you could, either via recursion or cycling through your deck, right? You could get them a lot of the time, at least if you have 2 copies, 3 times a game was completely doable. And then if you're really trying, a lot more than that. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with this. I think that these are all, so I don't know, I have different, all right, here's how I'd summarize, here's what these cards have in common. They all, kind of like I was talking about with Elusive, they all let you really break kind of the fundamentals of Arkham Horror. And I guess with Elusive I guess it's not quite the same thing, because Elusive lets you, for certain scenarios, really thwart what they're trying to do. This lets you break just the game's fundamentals, like there is a clock, right? Doom is placed every round, limiting the number of turns you have to complete the objective. If you can keep removing Doom, that has broken, and it's fundamental to the game. And then there's always a chance you might fail that test, right? That's another, I think, fundamental of the game that these break. I would say I raise my eyebrows most at Pendant of the Queen, because that's not doing either of those. It's just, maybe more like Elusive, where being able to automatically evade that enemy from across the map or pluck those clues from a location you never have to enter, maybe that just breaks too many scenarios. But they all kind of fall into that group that I think I'm okay kind of for the stability of the game, for those to be limited to a certain number of uses. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the right call. The design space of Arkham's a little bit tricky, because in some games, using a card over and over is only done in a broken combo deck. There's a lot of games where it's unlikely that you even cycle through your deck once. So there's lots of cards you put in your deck that you may not even see.
Right.
They don't have strong draw, they don't have strong tutoring, they have large deck sizes.
Well, and I would say most card games, you don't cycle your deck. You either lose when you run out of cards, or you just can't draw cards anymore. Like Arkham's kind of unique, and I think it's because it's a smaller deck game. But
yeah, I mean there were some Netrunner decks where cycling was like Max was an example of it.
Oh yeah, you would play cards to shuffle your discarded back into your deck. Yeah, it wasn't an inherent rule, even in Netrunner.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, in 2 of the classes in Arkham, playing cards, like the same card 3 or 4 times, is actually like pretty normal. So in the case of survivors, almost every survivor is going to play 2 copies of Resourceful. It's just a really strong card. There's not a lot of reason not to.
Yeah.
Recur those cards.
And it doesn't cost resources or actions.
Yeah, it even gives you an extra icon, you know, like and you've got a few survivors that have even more recursion, in Yorick and Silas. And so like I think the really broken Catastrophe combo, like one was with Mateo, I guess, but one was with Silas. And he could just basically, if he had 2 credits, $2, and
like how you corrected yourself with another not correct.
2 gold coins.
Yeah, go on.
As long as his skill went to 0, he could always succeed at any test, because you would play Eucatastrophe, it gives you an Elder Sign, which brings the Eucatastrophe back. Or maybe it brings Resourceful back. I think it brings Resourceful back, which brings Eucatastrophe back.
And that was because Eucatastrophe, it's not just automatically pass, it gives you an Elder Sign.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So like, yeah, it meant that if he had some money, it's like all of a sudden he can get a clue if he wants, or he can pass some random will test or something like that, you know? And that was super duper strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it's not like a crazy combo. It's literally just the ability printed on Silas, you know? And same with like some of these Seeker cards. Like, so for example, Pendant of the Queen, you know, Mandy can just assemble that 5-6 times, like no problem. Like you don't even have to cycle your deck. It just goes back in your deck.
And that I think maybe was, and like, because I think power level wise, Pendant of the Queen was is the least problematic of these, or as far as its kind of potential to break the game. But I think that's what was kind of quote unquote broken about it, is that it used to be that when you finish using Pendant of the Queen, it returns the 3 segments to your deck, and if you timed it so that you had 1 card in your deck at that time, all of a sudden the 3/4 of your 4-card deck were those segments. You would just put it right back together. That I think is the main issue, not
so for like that one, maybe saying before I went straight to remove from the game, I might have tried, what if they just go to your discard pile instead?
I'd agree that would maybe that would leave that power level, or that well, would that just kill it the same way? Are you likely to cycle your deck and find them all and play them all again?
I mean,
or is that actually like...
I think if you're playing 30-card Mandy, you're going to cycle your deck at least once.
Yeah.
Like, obviously 40, 50-card Mandy are a little different. But 30-card Mandy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they entertained that and it was just a little... If it just felt a little wonky or counterintuitive. Like, because you take those you take those segments and you set them aside. So they're like quasi removed from the game, and then to put them back in your discard pile, it would almost be like, well, why didn't you just put them in the discard pile in the first place? But to make that change, you would have still had to have changed the text on Pendant also, and you'd have to change multiple cards.
I mean, in a way, though, it's like less shuffling, because instead of like, oh, every time you use the Pendant, you have to shuffle back in your deck, you just put it in your discard pile, and you shuffle when you would anyway.
Yeah.
So you're actually like reducing the amount of shuffling in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I do agree that for the most part that would be another solution, and would leave that opportunity to go through your deck multiple times if you're Harvey. And it's
like Harvey, you can easily cycle 4 times without being particularly degenerate. It just, he has a lot of draw, and like because of all the assets, your deck's really small after the first cycle. You know, like it's not necessarily a degenerate strategy. Like there's no way that you could play Harvey now with Pendant of the Queen, because now after your first cycle, your deck would be 3 cards smaller. So you'd be like, I have 9 player cards and like 2 weaknesses. You know, like that's not possible.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm with you. This is not my favorite change, and if I like could or well, actually, I was gonna say if I could eliminate one, like undo one of these and not the others, pendant would be it. But and I'll segue here too. What do you think of a watchful piece in Hallow had an extra cost of you had to consume blesses,
Mhm.
right? You couldn't just recur them or cycle them and just dump them again and again. Like, do you think those needed to be here?
A watchful piece was really strong.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit. I think the best errata for it, but it's a little bit more wordy. I don't know. It should scale with player count. Like, it
Yeah.
should probably be something like it costs like 2 plus 2 per player
Yeah.
blesses or something. Maybe just 2 per player blesses. That might be too strong in one player. I don't know.
Maybe just chain it and say its XP cost is increased by the number of players in your campaign. Because actually, yeah, that card scales ridiculously well for the number of players.
Yeah.
Because for 4 players, you're getting quadruple the benefit and potentially have more players who can be helping put the blesses in the bag.
The other errata that we're not talking about is you could probably take both Eucatastrophe and Watchful Peace off this if you errated Resourceful to say level 0 through 2.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And there's precedent now. Now we've seen a handful of cards that care about the level of card that you're like recurring. So that's, I think, if you had suggested that 2 years ago, I would have been like, that's a weird thing to put on a card. But no, that's been done now.
Well, especially like for a while, Survivors only had level 0 through 3.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I'm only cutting out one level. But now that they actually do have some level 4s, it might seem a little more normal.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea. I hadn't heard that one. I like that, and I could resourceful like just gets stronger the more cards there are to combo with it. I feel like it's going to hit this taboo list in some form someday.
It's a little bit like Double or Nothing, where the more powerful cards you release, the more broken this old card gets.
Yeah. And so I could see that change happening someday, or it just being chained. I don't know, but or who knows? Maybe forbidden. That is the last thing on this taboo list is forbidden cards, which are banned if you're playing under taboo rules, which I highly recommend. If you're the type of person to watch this, we've covered this before. If you're the type of person to watch this video, I think you should be playing taboo. That's my take. But yeah, it's still just Double or Nothing. I guess it's still like good riddance Double or Nothing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really fun card. I hope that maybe they introduce something like it that's a little bit more future proofed.
Do you think Double or Nothing could have? Well, or wait, did it already remove itself from the game? Could it have just had the same fix that we've discussed with all these others? And
I don't know that would fix it, because I think you can pit so many cards in your Double or Nothing test.
That's true. It was doubling like every skill card you played.
Yeah.
And it was what is it, like Ancient Glyphs? What's the seeker card that like discovers clues for how much you pass by and all that stuff? Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, oh, I did 53 damage to the boss, but this removed from the game. Like, who cares?
Good point. Yeah, maybe Forbidden is the place for it. All right, that's it. Anything surprise you that it's not on the list? Or anything? Yeah, any other thoughts?
Definitely not surprised by Watchful Peace. I think that was the most obviously broken one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What about you?
I mean, I think I'm a broken record on this, but I think Charisma belongs on here in some form. And actually, we're now finally to the point where I would lump Relic Hunter in with it. I think that now there are just so many good accessories, and every class has at least 2 tempting ones. Maybe not Guardian. Everyone else has multiple tempting accessories that Charisma and Relic Hunter just feel like a 3 experience tax. Like, especially now that it's like, I don't think you usually do both, because you just don't have enough slots in a deck for like all those allies and all those accessories. But one or the other, you're going to just do it in every campaign, and it's not a fun card. Like, if I felt kind of obligated to do it, but it was like a fun splashy card or something, that's a little different. But it's just the most dull, straightforward cards in the game. I don't know. I think it's too early, I guess, to put it on here, because I think what I would like to see happen is more cards like Miskatonic University Funding to come out that do give you that ability to build decks that use multiple allies, but are more interesting in how they do it and make the classes feel different from one another instead of all buying the same neutral card. So maybe Edge of the Earth brings more of those, and then next update, I don't know.
Maybe they should say that you only get 2 permanent slots, and then they release a permanent that increases the number of permanents that you can put. So you can put that in your deck to play both Charisma and Relic Hunter and Studious.
Whoa. All of a sudden you've turned a 3 XP tax into an 8 XP tax.
Yes.
Good job. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, overall I continue to be pretty pleased with the changes. I think that the designers kind of know what needs to be done to keep the game in a good, stable, challenging state, and are doing a pretty good job of it, even if it's not all exactly what I would do.
Yeah, my only disappointment is that I only got to use Watchful Peace once, and it was in a scenario where we got 0 XP. So I clearly didn't break it enough.
Well, nothing's changed. You can keep using Watchful Peace once.
That's true.
Right? Nothing's changed there.
True.
All right. Well, thank you, Stephen, for joining me for this chat. I think we're gonna play some Arkham now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, a lot of the time when we play after recording these, or other times we stream on twitch.tv/optimalplay. So if you don't follow us there, please do, so you get notifications when we go live and all that good stuff. If the bot that I just programmed in the Optimal Play Discord works properly, you can also join our Discord. And there are links to these in the description on the YouTube channel to hang out with us and with other players of Arkham and other games. Optimal Play does a lot of Arkham, but not exclusively. And yeah, join us there. And if you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, if this is your first time joining us, thank you. We'd love if you'd subscribe, like the video, all those things that help our egos, right? Yeah. So we'll be back with more. Oh wait, Return to Circle Undone is coming out at some point. It just got indefinitely delayed, is my understanding.
Really?
Yeah, out of July. It was going to be in July.
Ooh, that's not great.
And retailers, that was the word that retailers were informed that it was pushed to August ? Like, I'm guessing it's stuck in a shipping container somewhere because there have been all those issues.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll be back when that comes out, and then when the Edge of the Earth player cards come out, that's going to be remember when all the starter decks and Innsmouth came out back to back, and we lived at this table in front of this camera for like a month.
Yep.
I think that'll be our life again. So we can look forward to that when the content dump that is the new LCG structure hits us. But so I'll see you then, and we'll see you then. Until then, be optimal.